Public now is that the length of appeals has made this into such a spectacle that people don't feel that there's the certainty of justice, and that's why they want people put to death.
I think that's certainly true. There is definitely a sense that the appeals process just goes on and on and on. And of course, when you talk about the death penalty only being imposed in this state for someone who has committed a heinous murder, an aggravated murder, people ask the question over and over again. The victims had no choice. The victims died young. The victims died before their time. And yet here we have people on death row 10, 12 years. You know, Charles Campbell is not the person who's been on death row the longest. That's Mitchell Roop. I've talked to people who tell me also that they believe that because of the system being the way it is, that really the death penalty is the only way to ensure that someone is really going to be out of the way, is no longer going to be a threat. There is a strong belief that if someone is commuted, their sentence is changed to prison, a prison term of life without parole, that there is a possibility that they will get out and be able to reoffend. So I think it's a sense of really we need to do this for our own safety, and we need to do this because there is simply no other way within the system that we have right now.
System. First-degree murderers 841, second-degree murderers 502, 105 convicted of manslaughter. So the numbers are very striking. We actually have a lot of people who have committed the crime of murder or taking human life, and there are only 10 on death row, which raises questions about equity.
All right, Jim, I think we're going to check with Linda Byron back in Walla Walla. It is midnight, and the execution scheduled to be carried out at 12:01. Linda Byron, if you can hear us now in Seattle, can you tell us what's going on right now in Walla Walla?
Right now there is a very large sense of quiet. Everyone is just waiting to hear if in fact the execution is being carried out. And because there is no communication right now between the execution chamber and those of us here outside the prison, we really can't tell you exactly what's happening. We do know what is supposed to be happening if they're going according to their procedures manual. And let's see if we can go inside the media briefing room right now, see if there's been any kind of message. There you see the official clock. This is the clock that the prison is using tonight. All of the clocks inside of the prison have been synchronized, and of course, that's very important. We're looking at 6 seconds, 5 seconds now, 4 seconds, 3, 2, and 1. It is 12:01, and this, of course, is the scheduled execution time for Charles Campbell. Of course, we don't know if it is happening right now, but certainly if it isn't happening, they are probably getting very close. I'm not hearing, well, right now I think you can hear that some of the protesters who've arrived are voicing their opinions, and I think some people are perhaps celebrating the passage of time here. Let's go to Susanna Frame now for an update. Susanna, what's going on over there?
Linda, you said it right on the nose there. This is an absolute celebration out here in the pro-death penalty protest area. These people have just given a 10-second countdown. On their watches anyway, in their minds, they believe that Charles Campbell has now been hanged. I covered the protest area outside the execution of Beth Allen last year. I have to tell you that this time around there's certainly many more people inside the pro-death penalty arena. The atmosphere is a bit different. There are no nooses allowed this year, no fireworks, no large signs, but I have to say these people are certainly as emotionally charged. These people are absolutely ecstatic, and they have come from all across the state. Some Walla Walla residents have spoken with people here from Tacoma, from Mount Lake Terrace, even from Clearview, people that wanted to be on the prison grounds to make sure that their support was shown when Charles Campbell was hanged. On their watches anyway, they believe this has happened. Linda, can you tell us any more about what might be going on inside the penitentiary walls?
Well, I think we should be hearing fairly soon from a representative who is inside, who is witnessing the execution, but of course right now we just simply do not know exactly what is happening. To tell you, one of the things that struck me when I've been talking to people around the community here recently that has been bothering people is the sense that Charles Campbell refused to make a choice about whether he would hang or receive the lethal injection. That is one of the things that has angered people because, of course, Campbell was able to use that to delay his execution and file numerous appeals over the years. But because he did not make a choice, it was made for him. According to this state's law, of course, it is hanging, and the prison has had a lethal injection team standing by. You know, one of the questions we have to ask is whether they may be having some problems with Campbell because, of course, we know that he did not voluntarily cooperate in leaving his death row cell to move over to the holding cell near the gallows. He laid down on the floor and he refused to get up. They had to spray him with some pepper spray in order to subdue him and allow some corrections officers to get into that cell. So all indications are that Campbell is going to be fighting this all of the way. Let's go back to the studio in Seattle.
Linda, it's Jim Compton. We heard earlier this evening that the warden or the superintendent there had said that there was a time after 7 o'clock when he could not change his mind about lethal injection. Now, we know that the Corrections Department had been telling us all along that they would keep open that option. It was kind of an unspoken rule that they would always provide that option. Do you think that tonight that they were pretty adamant or firm in their determination not to let him change his mind after 7 o'clock?
I think there were, although we weren't given an exact explanation as to why. I think a lot of it has simply to do with the preparations in terms of getting that execution team in place. But also there has been a sense, and I've heard this from a number of people, that because Campbell was not cooperative, they had a difficult time at 4 o'clock when they tried to make that transfer, that they simply were not going to allow him to manipulate the system any longer, and therefore, unless there was a court order, Charles Campbell would hang. He no longer had a choice of lethal injection. And of course, all of the medical experts will tell you that if you want to choose a more painless method of death, it is certainly lethal injection. You're sedated. There's like a paralyzing agent that is then applied before the actual solution that causes death. So, you know, Campbell brought that on in terms of making that decision not to make a choice, and then they made it for him.
Briefly, will you get a signal from the officials inside the prison to tell you and the other reporters that the execution has been carried out? How do we know at this point, other than the witnesses filing out and telling us?
Well, that's why we have the camera inside in that central briefing room, and that is where we are supposed to all get the signal at the same time. And they will be sending Veltri Johnson or another representative from the prison into the briefing room, make the announcement, and I think it will be as simple as the execution occurred at such and such a time, and then of course a doctor is called in and has to make the official pronouncement of death. And as to the remains after that happens, Campbell has asked to be cremated, and that won't occur until an autopsy is done. An autopsy is really important because there have been very few autopsies performed in hangings in this country, and could have a lot of ramifications on the appeals of other inmates who are on death row. Let's go back now to Susanna Frame, to the pro-death penalty group that she's been covering all night. Susanna?
Linda, I must tell you that the people that are for the death penalty that showed up here tonight in Walla Walla assume that this thing is over. If you can pan over to the left here, Bruce, you can see that these supporters are leaving the grounds. They assume that Charles Campbell has been hanged. As far as they're concerned, their night is over. I have some of the supporters standing by with me here. Ma'am, maybe you can tell me what your thoughts are now that we assume that this act has passed.
We're glad that it's done. We feel it should have happened a long time ago, and we're sad that somebody had to die, but for the crimes that he committed, he needed to go.
I see you brought two young people, I'm assuming your daughters. Do you think this was important for them to see?
It was their choice. I would have preferred that they didn't come, but it was their choice.
How about you girls? What are your thoughts now that